So, welcome everyone. I'm Donna Trujillo. I am a vice president with Generation Schools Network. I'll tell you more in a minute. But you are attending our SEL forum this month for You Can Do It, Educator Wellness. We want to finish our year with momentum. And just Zoom logistics, if you can, we'd love to see your smiling faces and put your video on. It helps with interaction as well. You might want to have a few pieces of blank paper. If we have enough participants join, we will be doing breakout rooms. Please participate as fully as you're able to. Stay engaged and present. Be bold. Don't be afraid to share out. With this small of a group, you can unmute your microphone and talk or add any questions or comments to the chat box, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And then I'm Donna Trio, like I said, Vice President of Tiered Services and Special Populations. I have been with GSN a little over 4 years now, I think, maybe 5. And then I was formerly the director of all 90 schools for special education with Douglas County. I've been a teacher for pre-K through 12, a school administrator. I have lived and breathed this life that you're all living from ground up. So we're here to help you.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach Kess. I'm a senior director with GSN. Been with GSN for a couple of years, and before that, as like Donna, I was a director of health, wellness, and prevention with Douglas County. I've been doing since leaving there. I've been doing a lot of work in this health and wellness space, serving districts all over Colorado and up into Wisconsin, just helping them look at their systems and their staff and support them. This is a real important subject, I feel, for education. And making sure, just ensuring that our staff is healthy and happy and able to do all the things that they need to do. So looking forward to having good conversations with you today.
Hi everyone, I'm CJ Roberts. I'm a director here at Generation Schools Network. I run our Empowering Education, which are our SEL curriculum and product that we deliver to schools. I also have been a director of our health and wellness programming for the past 6 years. My background is in health and wellness, and health services is my degree, so this is kind of true to my heart, but I am here to mostly just support Zach and Donna with the technical stuff.
You're muted, Donna.
Sorry. Real quick, at the end of this session, you guys are going to take a survey, and once you take that survey, we will be sending you the recording and the materials from today, as well as your certificate for your CEUs. It sometimes takes up to 2 weeks to get that to you. We try to get it done within the same week. So when CJ drops that survey link into there, please take the time to fill it out. We really do look at those and take your feedback seriously. And also it helps us plan for our future forums, not just how we manage them and the activities we do, but also the topics that we present on. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us. So what are we doing today? We're going to talk about why self-care is important. So many of us talk about it, but really do we do it? So we'll learn about that. We'll also be taking a self-care inventory. We're going to learn more about resiliency. We hear that term a lot, but it's very confusing. A lot of people are like, well, how do we build it? You're going to get to know that. And then we'll do a wrap up. Zach, CJ, and I will stick around with you for any questions or comments that you have.
All right. First, one of the real important strategies, I think, we talk a lot about mindfulness practice and meditation and those kind of things. Well documented, well researched on helping our own health and wellness. And I just wanted to go over one that I think is a real powerful meditation practice. It's a kindness meditation, and if you've done one of these, then you know they can be powerful. If you commit to these as a regular practice, I think they're very helpful. When it comes to being an educator in April, this could prove to be very helpful because there's just a lot going on. Our tempers are short, our patience short, we're tired. There's so much going on. If you are an educator with a family and you're trying to take care of all your things going on with your kids, I mean, there's just a lot going on. And so there's all kinds of way or all kinds of reasons for us to be angry and mad and upset and impatient with people. And this brings us back to what we know about this positive psychology of when we're feeling good, when we are looking at things a little differently, and we're concentrating more on the positive things, it really does affect our mental health. So this kindness meditation, I'll just kind of explain how it does it, how it works, and then we can just do it for a little bit. So the first thing that I want you to do is just think about a place, a very special place for you, a calming place, a happy place, somewhere that you can think about that just brings you joy. This is a picture of my place that I think about, and this is a place where I grew up in Montana and fly fishing in one of my favorite rivers. So this is a place that I will envision in my head. A lot of people might pick the beach or your backyard or whatever that is. So if you would just kind of think of that place, that special place. And then the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to picture standing next to you or joining you in this space, this special place, is someone special to you, someone close to you, someone that it's not hard to love, not hard to feel good about. That person, I want you to visualize them just standing there or sitting there or doing whatever you're doing there, just by your side. And I want you to visualize you looking at them and saying, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're safe. And then I want you to visualize that person looking over back at you and saying that same thing back to you, wishing that you were happy, that you were healthy, and that you felt safe. Now I want you to think of another person, someone that's more neutral in your life. Maybe someone that you just ordered the Starbucks from. Just someone that you don't have a good or bad feeling about, but someone neutral. And I want you to picture that person sitting there next to you in this special place. Turn to them and tell them, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're safe. And then see them saying that right back to you, telling you that they hope you're happy, they hope that you're healthy, and that you're safe. Now I want you to picture someone that you might be struggling with a little bit. And that person that you're struggling with, they're there in that special place with you. And I want you to turn to them and say, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're safe. And then have them turn back to you and say that same thing. I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're safe. Now sit there in that special place for 3 big breaths. The sounds that you hear, the feelings that you feel, the smells that you remember smelling, feeling happy, feeling healthy, and feeling safe. And that is a kindness meditation. And hopefully you could see how to include that maybe in your day. And when you're maybe feeling and you're struggling, it's not a bad strategy at all. All right. So why is self-care important? Well, there's a lot of things that why we think this is important. One of them is all the research that's out there right now around what's going on with educators. There's lots of studies. This is just one we picked up from the RAND Corporation. We know, and the research is very clear, that our educators in the U.S. are the most stressed out profession in the U.S. And this isn't just pandemic related or related to that. This first study that ever came out in 2014 showed that educators were tied with nurses and healthcare professionals. And then they did this again in 2017, where educators surpassed healthcare workers. That was pre-pandemic. Now, after the pandemic, it's been pretty much an upward trend for educators. Unfortunately, we're upward going the wrong way in this situation. So we know that we are feeling the stress as educators more than most professions in the U.S. So that alone is, we got to figure out, some things for ourselves for sure. In this conversation, what I don't want to be disrespectful about or not, acknowledge is that it is not just, we're not here to going to tell you that that you just got to figure out how to take more of the things that are hard, or the stress is all on you, or it's only your responsibility. The research is also very clear, and this came out of Penn State. There's 4 main sources of teacher stress, right? And if you look at these, a lot of these are at the organizational level. And so we have to recognize that. Educational leaders, if there's any educational leaders here in this, we got to understand that is something as a leader, we need to look at our organization. We need to be able to dig in, look at data, work and shared leadership with our staffs, and figure out what are some of these stressors. Those are the 4 main stressors. And the interventions are broad, right? There's a lot we can do. Absolutely, there's things that we can do in organization. And I can tell you straight away, of all the work I've done with school districts over the last few years to do this very intentional strategic planning around staff health and wellness, that yes, there are things organizationally that we can change and we can do to help our educators. Today, though, what we're really talking is about the individual interventions. So what are some things that we can do? Yes, self-care, but we're also talking about resilience. So inherently in this business, it's stressful, it's hard. And that's just the nature of the beast. We are working with young people. We are working with, some of us, they're like in a middle school that I had 75 staff. I mean, there's 75 different personalities we're dealing with, right? So there's a lot going on. This pressure of doing the right thing for kids and being able, it is so complicated. And I think that's why we have all these stressors. And so, yes, there absolutely is also an individual responsibility to find out what we need and do some things for ourselves in order for ourselves to be happy and healthy. So definitely 2 things, but we're going to focus today more on the individual stuff. Again, RAND survey. These are the things we found out mentally and physically, that it has stress. When you talk about toxic stress, so this is stress that continues and you never get a chance to reset. It's like always under stress, always stressed, always stressed. That takes a huge toll mentally and physical. And you can see what's going on there with some of these things, right? We're going to talk about a little bit about these. The cool thing, not the cool thing, but the thing that I think is important to understand is that these are normal, right? So I also want to normalize stress and normalize what happens to us as being educators and being in this workplace. Not abnormal at all for feeling burned out or depressed or have anxiety. We got to get rid of this stigma. We have people pretend they're super people. They're not, right? Everybody is dealing with this and it impacts everyone. And so just different people are at different levels. So why is this important to understand? I think the most important part of this to understand is because, like I said, everyone's at a different level, right? And it's important we do this for ourselves, but it's also important for others, right? Because we're not all at the same place. Prevention is really key. We want to try to get out in front of this. So we're gonna try to look at this as a prevention-based model when we're talking about self-care and resilience and these kind of things. Problem blindness is a real thing out there, and we know this. If we don't understand, if we don't understand what burnout is, we don't understand compassion fatigue or secondary traumatic stress syndrome. If we don't understand things, then it's very difficult to address it. I always equate it to my survival training. Prior to education, I was in the military and did a lot of survival training. And one of the key things when you're in the woods and you're lost, the key thing about that is that you admit you're lost, or you keep justifying that rock is the different rock, right? And when it's the same one, we have to recognize that there's a problem in order to start fixing it. And so we got to be careful of problem blindness. And that starts with this awareness. If we can all become more aware of this, we can recognize it in ourselves, we can recognize it with others, we can deal with things compassionately. And I think that's a very important thing. So what is burnout? Yes, and anybody that's been in education for a while is probably experience this. Again, I want to normalize this, right? And there's stages. There's definitely stages. Starting off strong, right? Being a new educator. I can remember being a first, second year teacher, and I was just ready to go at it and do everything, right? And you start overworking, and then you start to isolate yourself because you're starting to distress and not have enough time for other things and having that balance. And then we see some adverse effects on our own personality, our own stress levels, how we interact with people, our patience, all these kind of things. And then we start to get into these more serious conditions of depression and feeling empty and just emotionally done. Again, this is normal in jobs that are stressful, in jobs that demand a huge mental and physical load. Secondary traumatic stress syndrome. You know, I love the picture of the wet cat, because my favorite quote in this, it says something like this. It's like going swimming and expecting not to get wet, right? When we're in this profession and we're working with all these complicated issues and young people with so many different experiences, and you're hearing about them, and I mean, it breaks your heart, and you want to do so much, and you have, staff members that are going through divorces or deaths in the family or all these big things, like it, right, where we get close to each other and it impacts us. So to think that those kind of things aren't going to impact us as humans is like thinking you're going swimming and not getting wet, right? Most of us got into education. We got a big heart. We're there for the right reasons. We want to do good. So these kind of things do impact us. Again, it's normal. And it's hard when we hear these things. Some of the symptoms you might notice, right? You might have intrusive reactions. So you might have some intrusive obsessive thoughts about things, some dreams, other things that aren't really your normal part of your personality, that you're noticing, more scared, more anxious, avoiding certain situations. You might notice those. Also that numbing, like I can't even react to this, right? Because this is too hard. You might notice that. And the hypervigilance and difficulty concentrating on what you need to do. So those are some of the things. Again, normal. So getting rid of the stigma around this. No superheroes. We're going to feel this. Compassion fatigue. This is just, we're exhausted mentally, physically. And you'll notice some of these in yourself and maybe others, right? You might find yourself wanting to avoid student contact because you're afraid of what you might hear, or digging in with kiddos to really see what's happening. You start to avoid those kind of things. Might see this in others. I certainly got this way, and I saw it in some colleagues, right? Being cynical, that sarcasm gets really prominent. And we start to be very cynical about parents and students in general, like, oh, this is the worst class ever. And God, parents today are just horrible. Like, we start saying these things all the time. This is a symptom of compassion fatigue. Say things about students and parents, problems that like not understanding there's other stuff going on, right? So when we're at that point where we don't understand people are going through some stuff and everyone has a different experience than maybe we do, that might be a sign of compassion fatigue. Again, I mentioned the whole using sarcasm, and then starting to distance ourselves, especially emotionally, wanting to be in relationships, wanting to do things with others. We want to get out of this situation, and so this could be that symptom of compassion fatigue. I think this is a really good quote from a teacher here in Colorado in Aurora Public Schools. All right. So I'm going to take just some time, and Donna, you can go ahead and start from here and take this next group.
Okay, so we are going to be talking about self-care now, and we're going to be reflecting on what you can do for your own self-care. So,
sorry,
I want you to take a moment and think about, are you experiencing burnout, secondary trauma and stress, and/or compassion fatigue? How is this, or might it be, impacting your health and well-being? So go ahead and take a minute to think about those questions. And if anybody wants to unmute or share out in the chat box, we'd love to hear from you too. Zach, I have a question. I have these questions for you.
Yeah.
So are you experiencing any of these?
Not currently, but I can tell you, and we've shared this story before, this is one of the reasons I switched my job, because in my job prior to this, I was in very far stages of burnout. And it was actually my wife who said, I think it's time for you to find something else or to get some help, because you're angry, you're different. And I was experiencing a lot of those things of just not feeling valued, and that was really hitting me. And then I was more sarcastic, and then I didn't care. And yeah, it wasn't good. So I've definitely been there, and it's not a place you want to be. I mean, this is what I worry about people is, and I've seen it. I've seen it. I know others have seen this badge that we like to wear as educators, like how miserable I am almost. It's like this badge of honor. Like I was up till 4 a.m. doing blah, 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 and it's like, instead of just saying, man, my life is out of balance right now. I need to reassess. I need to take a break. I need to focus on me and taking care of some of this stuff, because this is going to be unhealthy. And that's a problem. Like I was doing good work. I had teams doing great work, but I didn't have the bandwidth to deal with it anymore. And so, if I'd have maybe got ahead of that and maybe been on top of it more, who knows?
And you and I talk all the time about figuring out what's important, keeping aligned with that, and being able to have and learn that saying no is okay. We talk about that a lot. And so now we're going to move into, how do we do that? So self-care benefits. Obviously, if we neglect our own personal self-care, we experience burnout, exhaustion, stress, depression, anxiety, lack of sense of self, weakened immune system, irritability, and frustration. Zach, in your example, that all happened.
And I bet you right now, Donna, if we surveyed educators, because it's April, I mean, like we also go through this cycle of when we're in school buildings, right? Like, maybe that's why people are showing up to these. I hope more people watch it. I hope people start to take this serious and recognize in themselves and their peers. This is one of the toughest times of the year as an educator. We're getting near the end, and we're tired, right? I mean,
and we need to take care of ourselves to be able to help others.
Yep.
And so you guys can see the benefits, and a lot of us are walking around sleep deprived. Doing that self-care can solve that right away. So many people in our nation are taking sleeping pills to sleep at night as their first step, because it's easier for them in their minds to put in the work to take a pill than it is to actually do something and set those boundaries and take care of themselves. Zach and I were in a meeting with one of our colleagues this morning, and it was awesome because he needed to add a meeting. And what he said is, or was it was yesterday morning, I'm off for the day. Anyway, what he said was, nobody can schedule me from noon to 1. This is my time to go to the gym, and I need that for my brain break and for my personal self-care. And guess what? All of us said, good job, Jose. Nobody took offense. It's our boundaries. We got to set those, and it's okay to set those.
And it sometimes takes a cultural shift, but we got to start somewhere. We got to do it. We cannot be number one in the country for most stressed out profession. We got to really stop that. So.
Okay. So we're going to do a fun activity with you now. We're going to be using the scale below, and you're going to get, CJ will drop the link in, or you can follow along with the slides. Just do the first thing that comes to mind, but you're going to use this scale. So if it's 5 frequently, 4 occasionally, 3 rarely, 2 never, One, it never occurred to me. So CJ dropped the link. You can follow that, or you can just have a piece of paper and jot it down as we go through our slides. You're rating your own self-care. So for your physical care, take a minute, give you a couple minutes to look at that and rate yourself. Remember, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 being you never considered it, 5 being frequently.
I was muted. And this survey, everybody, if you want to find it, this is from SAMHSA. So it's the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. So you could always go to samhsa.org and you could find this also. We just took it from there.
Students love doing this, by the way. You can do it with your classes.
Just watch the question there. It says takes time to be sexual with yourself or a partner. Might want to delete that for school, just saying. For students. Or, you know, answer some parent phone calls.
Yeah. We do have another version that does not include that if you need it.
Another strategy with this, as you're going through this, maybe write something, especially if you put a 1, I've never even considered this. There's a lot of really good ideas that might spark some things for you. So you can write these down or something like that, just to kind of recognize, like, oh, didn't think of that. I mean, wear clothes you like. That's pretty simple. I would not even consider that as a self-care thing.
You want to skip to the next one, Zach?
Yep.
So now we're going to do psychological self-care. If there's something on here too that you do that's not on here, sorry, if there's something not on here that you do for yourself, feel free to add it. I like this one, Zach, because it's about self-awareness. Some of these are really, we don't take enough time to reflect on who we are as a person. We just end up being who others want us to be. And this reminds us to do this.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, the other one that hits me here is that practice receiving from others. In some of our other trainings, we talk about self-care being receiving as well. So often in our society, someone gives us a compliment and we dismiss it by saying, like, if somebody says, oh, I like your shirt. Yeah, well, I got it at TJ Maxx for $5, right? It's a way of dismissing that comment. Or, wow, you really worked hard on that. Oh, it's okay. It wasn't a big deal. Rather than just saying thank you. When someone is giving us a compliment, it is a gift. And we need to accept that gift and simply say thank you. And that then honors that gift that someone gave us. So my husband and I own a restaurant, and all the time I see people fighting over who's going to pay the tab. And then that person pays the, they finally figure it out. And the other people are like, you didn't have to do that. And I always tell them, all you have to do is say thank you. They gave you a gift. They wanted to treat you. Thank you is enough. So even as I'm serving, I'm training about self-care and gratitude.
Love it. It's awesome. All right. There's
Okay.
next one.
The next one, I can't even see the heading.
Emotional self-care.
Okay. Thank you. So that emotional self-care, things that you do for yourself emotionally. In our society, many of us, I know I was taught that emotion shows a sign of weakness. What I've learned is it's absolutely a sign of strength. The fact that you can recognize the feelings and allow yourself to feel and share your feelings with others and let them see those feelings, that is the opposite of weakness. And that's something that causes that burnout and compassion fatigue, is that we cannot be honest, right? If I'm having a hard day, I've learned, whether I'm with students, adults, my family, it's okay to recognize, guys, I'm really struggling today. I'm not feeling well. I've had a lot on my plate recently. I may not be my best self today. I hope you can forgive me. And also, I will continue to do my best for you. But if I need help, I'm going to ask for help. And asking for help is another part of all of this. That also, especially with your students and your family, helps them see that you're human, helps establish a relationship with them, be connected, and helps them be able to then feel open with being honest with you about how they're feeling and what they're needing. So if you start with you, you can have that ripple effect to others. And then spiritual self-care. As you can see here, it's not about being in the confines of a church. It's not about religion in any way. It can be, it can't be. It's about gratitude, making that reflection time, taking time to enjoy that world around you, and being in awe and curious about that world. Seeking first to understand. And Zach, I need to thank you, because working with you, working with CJ, I guess I need to thank both of you. I don't feel like I have to be the expert all the time. Like, we ask questions, we explore as a team, and I feel comfortable being able to say, I don't know. Can you help me understand that? That helps a lot in life too. And I never knew this before working with GSN with such a great team.
I was just, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like, it's mutual feeling, and it is nice. It's nice when you find that and you feel comfortable enough to want to be vulnerable. So thank you very much for the compliment, Donna.
And hopefully for all of you, you have that person or others that you don't always have to feel like you have to be in charge or be the expert all the time. All right. Now, workplace or professional self-care. Interestingly enough, when I go out and train districts and school teams, I often find this to be their lowest area. And that strikes up interesting conversations, especially when administration is present and we're doing physical activities and they can physically see where the lowest is on this. And it really helps them, like, oh my goodness, I need to change and grow and connect with my staff and figure out how to make things better for them. This is a great inventory to use with staff during a staff meeting or a self-care. We do this with GSN. It's kind of a great way to check in and understand maybe what's missing and what could be better, and open up those conversations to do so. I remember 2 years ago, I was in a district and everyone, including the administration, rated this as their lowest area. That opened up the most beautiful, it was emotional. Everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people started crying, and it opened up conversations and opened up their eyes. And you know what? It empowered them to do something about it. And they walked out of there with activities for staff, immediately problem solved together. This is in our control. We can make it better. And they did. So you can work together to change this. All right. Balance. This one's pretty simple. 2 questions there.
I bet this is a low for a lot of people too in education, from my experience.
Yeah. And some days are better than others too. We also have to give ourselves grace. And I always tell, as an advocate, when they're filling out different surveys, I always tell them, don't look at that day only, or when we're in meetings for students with special or gifted needs, what's the whole collective, right? When we're gathering data on students, we don't just look at a single point of data. We look at everything together. So again, don't be hard on yourselves if this is low, but also don't just look at what it's like today. So what does self-care look like for you? And in the chat, please feel free to or unmute. We'd love your participation and input so we can have some conversation around this. What do you notice as you look at your scores? Anybody want to share?
When I did this one, Donna, I totally noticed, like the physical self-care was kind of always been my go-to, but and that was the highest one. And then it dropped off, like the psychological, and I think for me, more than anything, it was just a reminder of like, it's helpful to have balance in even those strategies, because here's the thing, right? When you get busy, like feels like, I swear, like a 2-3 week cycle where I'm like really good. Like I get a workout in, I do my, and then like there's 3 weeks I do nothing, right? Like I just don't have time to get it. And then if that's what I'm banking, that's where I'm putting all my investment into that, and I've not invested in anything else, then guess what happens in those 3 weeks at the end of it, right?
You fall apart.
I'm burnt. Like I am like not in a good place. And if finally I'm like, oh, come on, man, get a workout and you'll feel so much better. Oh, yes, I do. But like it really started making me think about like, all right, bud, like you need to balance, you need to take something, a strategy from each of these, or get a nice menu going so that you can, because like you were saying, life is life. And sometimes you can do those things and sometimes you don't, but maybe it's like, okay, I couldn't do the physical, but man, I do have 5 minutes for a mindfulness meditation. That only takes me 5 minutes. And or I can wake up in the morning with a cup of coffee and write in my gratitude journal. I can do that. Right? Like,
or when you're driving to a location, you can just, rather than having the stereo on or a podcast or on the phone or whatever, you can shut the world out and just watch what you're look around you as you're driving.
Or it's time for me to call my buddy. Like I need to have that relationship. Yeah, it's just, that was my big aha when I did this. So I don't know if anybody else had something like that, but I was just like,
Okay, where do you have an easy time taking care of yourself? Zach, for you, mostly physical, unless you can't.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's more around that spiritual. Being able to just take the moments, and even if I'm crazy busy, I will stop myself and take a deep breath and let it out. And that can reset me. It can be in a split second. It doesn't have to be all the time, but I can feel myself getting tense. I can feel myself wanting to say things. All I have to do is take a breath, right? Or if I'm waking up tired that morning, all right, I'm going to get through my day. I was having this conversation with my son this morning because he didn't sleep well. Okay, we don't let it ruin our day. We know we're tired. We've recognized we're tired, but we're going to get to the end of our day and finish it out, and then we can relax. Just putting things into perspective.
Yeah, I saw Dr. Kennedy. Did you raise your hand? Do you want to say something? We would love that. But still muted. You're still muted. Sorry.
Okay, that's better. I'm not a teacher in the classroom, but I work with teachers in the classroom all the time, and I'm about to do my own series of webinars. I've also been a professor of teacher ed, and I see all of these things, and especially, I have to say, especially since COVID, I live in New York City. So, and we have very high needs populations, a lot of at-risk students. And I see that our teachers are just so overwhelmed that besides, I mean, there's a lot of behavioral disorder, there's a lot of absenteeism, there's a lot of crime. Our kids have to go through metal detectors. I mean, and they're taking the subway back and forth. So it's very stressful for the teachers, and I'm very sensitive to what they're doing. I'm about to do a thing on mindfulness. But I noticed for myself, and this was good because I always do these to see if there's something I can pick up on, was the idea of asking for help and giving yourself some praise and expressing your outrage in certain situations. And I think that's good for me. I think it's good for my colleagues and my teachers. And often we're not asking for enough help and saying, you think and the whole idea of always being the expert, because I always am the expert, but I don't want to always be the expert. I try to learn from everybody else. So I think those were really important things that jumped out. And also saying no, when you have too many responsibilities, just having the courage to say no. I think a lot of times we go in with excellent intentions, but we're not superheroes. And sometimes just learning to say no is a step forward, even if we don't do it all the time, but knowing our own limitations, whether it's time or energy or whatever. So this was very interesting. So thank you.
Well, and I could not agree with you more. We, again, in our society have been taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness. It's the exact opposite. It's a sign of strength. And it's also giving a gift to others because we want to help each other. Naturally innate human being is to help. And many of us, like Zach said earlier, chose this profession because we want to help. And if we're not asking for help, we're not allowing others that gift to help us. And it's okay to say no. We should be able to say no, and we can say no. And I always tell people, start with one no, and then practice. And it takes practice. And it's never a weakness to say no. Or maybe if you can't say no right away, you can say, you know what, let me think about that. And I'll get back to you, rather than just digging ourselves a hole and constantly saying yes. Okay, what is one area you would like to commit to growing? What will you support you in being successful? This is important because we want you to write down one area that you would like to commit to growing. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You can even just pick, like you said, I'm going to practice saying no, or I'm not going to be the expert. And write that down, because when we write it down, it commits it to our brain, it commits it to our memory. And give yourself the opportunity within the next week to practice it once. Whatever that thing is, commit to yourself that you're going to do it at least once. Try it out, see what happens. And the other thing is, if you share it, what you're committing to now, either in the chat or by unmuting, verbalizing it helps to commit yourself to it.
For sure.
When we're doing this with staff in person, we have them actually turn to a shoulder partner and say what they're going to be doing. And then they are accountability partners. And a week later, they're tasked with checking in with each other to see how it went. And if they followed through, if not, what they can do to help each other make it happen.
All right. We're going to move on into resilience. And, I think as educators, we're always talking about our students. How do we help our students be more resilient? How do we, you want them to take risk, want them to bounce back? We know it's hard out there and there's all these things going on. And I think, it's a very important conversation to figure out, how are we going to be resilient? One of the school districts I was just working with, I meet regularly with the superintendent, and I asked her how everything was going. Well, they had a massive ordeal go on where they had to do an expulsion because a kiddo brought a weapon into school. And then they had a Title IX complaint for a staff member. And this is a small district, and it upended everything. Between those two things, a week apart. That's why we need resilience. And I asked her straight up, what are you doing to take care of yourself? How are you going to be able to bounce back and lead this school district after those two massive things happening? Right? We have to be able to do some things as educators so we can bounce back, because this is the job we're in and it is hard. And like we said before, not to be disrespectful about it, but it is not all on your shoulders for sure. There are organizational things and system things that need to be fixed in education. We all know that. And each school has their own unique things that they need to do and take a hard look at how things are going for sure. But even if you fixed all of that, there are still these little human beings that we're trying to work with families and complex situations in a society that's all over the place. And then we're bringing that in. So how are we going to bounce back? How are we going to be resilient? I want to talk about this, and we're going to spend some time here and just as I explain each one of these a little bit. And just so as you know, we're going to have you, we don't have enough for a breakout. So hopefully we'll be able to have a conversation about this. And people will unmute and maybe in the chat and you guys will participate. I hope that you're willing to do that. As I explain each one of these, what they mean, I want you to kind of think about, what are some things that you're doing that in your role that complements this idea that you're already doing, or things that you're like, oof, we maybe could be doing a better job in this area. Okay. Tried to break. There's a lot of stuff down there. There's a lot of books out there about resilience, growth mindset, all kinds of great stuff that are out there. When I come through the research and all this stuff, we came up with, let's try to come up with 7. Let's make this maybe easier to remember. So the 7 C's of resilience. The first thing, and the research is very clear about this, competence, the skills, and in this framework, the skills an educator, or wherever your role is in that school or in that educational system, do you have the skills you need to navigate your work? It's number 1 there for a reason up at the top. Many smaller districts, right? And well, all districts, but a lot of the smaller ones I work with, I mean, they are wearing 3 to 4 different hats, trying to do all these things. We hear this a lot from our teachers. Like, oh, now you want me to be this and you want me to be this. And aren't I supposed to just teach math? Right. And I think we gotta understand that we just don't teach math nowadays. That's not what education's, right? We all have to do more than that. It is not like, that is not K-12. That might be college. I don't know. But in K-12, there's more things we got to do, right? Yeah, you're shaking your head. Dr. Kennedy's like, no, not even in college. Okay. So there are more things, right? But if there's a need and you want to, because in your heart you just want to do this, do you have this confidence to do it? Do you have the skills? Because if you don't, there's nothing more stressful in the world than trying to do something when you don't know how to do it. When my 15-year-old daughter comes in freaking out and says, Dad, I need help with this math, and I'm like, you want to stress it out, though? I have no idea what you're doing. And it's stressful, and I'm trying to help her, and she's freaking out, and I'm like, I can't do this math. This is not how they taught me to do it, right? And so that in a little micro, 30 minutes is stressful. And then when it's your job and you don't have the skill. So what do we do to build resilience, right? We got to be honest and say, I need to go out and find some skills. I need to talk to my administrator. We need PD on this. I need to know how to do this to be better at this. That will lower your stress right there. It helps you be more resilient, bounce back, be able to take things. That is competence. Many people know John Hattie's work, right? Collective efficacy, right? And efficacy in what we do. Confidence is huge. We see this in our students. If our students are confident in their ability to learn, then man, do they knock it out of the park. It's the same with us as adults. If we are confident, like I really know in my heart, like I got this. It's very related to competence, but it's different. It's I believe in myself and that I can do this. And I have that confidence. So what are the things we're doing to build confidence, to be confident in what we're doing, right? Well, we got a new SEL curriculum. We went through this PD and I think I understand it, but am I confident in myself that I'm going to be able to do this? Or am I confident there's support when I need it, right? Am I am I confident that I, if I fail, that it's going to be okay and I can learn from this and it's not going to hurt my performance evaluation or something. There's a lot that goes into this confidence piece. And I think it's what John Hattie talks about with that collective efficacy. When a school of teachers and leaders feel confident in what they're doing, students achieve and grow. Coping, right? One's power to overcome adversity. What coping mechanisms, coping strategies, coping supports do we have when adversity happens? Because it's life, and it's either going to happen to us in a personal level, it's going to happen to us on a professional level, it's going to happen to our colleague or to a student. There's going to be adversity. What kind of coping skills? Again, I think self-care, that conversation can be wrapped up into coping. Do we have what we need to do to cope with this? Control is a big thing, a big way, a very important thing to understand and work towards when you want to talk about having resilience, reducing stress, right? And being able, to work. We as human beings need to know that we have control, that we have agency and autonomy. We talk about it with students, how important it is for a student, right? I don't think we do enough to share responsibility as adults, share responsibility with our students. That's another conversation. But I think when we talk about that, how much autonomy do you have in your classroom, in what you do? Is there shared decision-making, right? Are there ways that you get to contribute to that conversation with leaders, with your department, if you're, in the English department and you're thinking of whatever new text that you're going to use or whatever you're going to do? Is there a shared responsibility in there? And do you have some autonomy? Do you feel like you can do those things with the skills that you have, that you get to act on those skills and your values and those kind of things? That's a real important piece of figuring out, how can I have some control, right? Yeah, and some places we have more than others, and so it's really trying to figure out where can I get some of that sense of control. Character. When we talk about character, what I'm really thinking about is that growth mindset, and our mindset as we come into this education, into this profession of education. So I think there's a lot that goes into, but I think one of the most important things is just trying to understand this, if you have that growth mindset, because that growth mindset is going to allow you to bounce back from adversity, to be resilient, to be able to cope, to look at things such as a failure or something that you didn't quite get to as a learning experience, right? We talk about this growth mindset, how important it is for our students. It's also really important for adults. And it's kind of funny when you dig into it with adults. We're older, our experiences are what they are. Many of us have been on this planet for a long time, been in the classroom for a long time. And honestly, our mindsets get kind of fixed. This mindset of like, I'm here to teach math and that's it. I'm not here to help the mental health of our students. That's a mindset in today's world of education it's going to cause you some issues. I think that's going to be very stressful, because that's just not the reality of what we're dealing with. And so, do we have an open mindset for what it really takes to educate students, what it is to work in an environment with a diverse staff of a lot of different people with different life experiences, with different leadership experiences? Do we have that character to be able to adjust to those things? Because if we do, then we're going to be more resilient, because we're going to, I tell my kids this all the time. I hate that teacher. Well, you're not going to like every boss. We all say the same thing, right? Well, that's the reality. So how do we overcome that? We try to give our kids, I give my son, like, I get it. I don't like that guy either. But, you have a whole year with him, bud. So you're going to have to figure out, how are you going to navigate this year in math? You're going to have to figure this out, just like we all do. So that's a big one. Connection. Honestly, it could take connection from 6 and put it at the top all by itself, because we know connection and belonging is the #1 protective factor against risk factors for students, for youth and adults. The power, like Donna was saying, our innate human nature is also to be connected, to feel as if we belong. So in our school environment, what are we doing to build relationships with each other, right? For sure, like having good positive relationship. I'm not saying like you got to be besties with everybody, but how as a school, right, in encouraging those relationships? What are you doing in your own personal life to build relationships, to find those relationships? They can be professional relationships, but it's still a connection, right? Finding things that you have in common to connect over. Also, if you're a teacher in a classroom or working, with kids mostly, how are you building relationship with the kids? Now it's profound. The research is super clear. Everybody knows this, how profoundly important that is for a youth, that they feel that they have a relationship with a trusted adult and that adult in the classroom, and how important that is for them. Like that can just change their life. But it's also important for you to have good relationships. Now, no, don't be on Snapchat with them. I'm not saying that, right? But what can we do to build good relationships with our students? It's really important. That connection. We're in this classroom together. We've built community together. How are we connected, with this common purpose in our school? That's important. And then contribution. One of the things that I love to do when I'm working with staff, and we start this out usually, is to try to reconnect educators back to why they became an educator. I think it's really important to come back and figure out what your purpose is. So just that simple exercise of, why did I get into this profession? Right? It's been over 20 years. Like, why did I do this again? Right? And when we start to go through that process and then figure out where's our next step, like what purpose can we find? What's the next thing? And I'm one of those guys where I need another project. I need something new and creative to do. It keeps me going. And I love those kind of things because it reignites this purpose. Oh, I can work on this project now. This is cool. So figuring that out in the school, right? So you're not getting stagnant. Maybe if you're like a middle school guy, right? Go coach track. Go do something new that you might find something different, or a cool new purpose that you can do to reinvigorate you. Come back to why you decided to, never be a millionaire ever, and be a teacher, right? Be an educator. Why there was a reason, and I hope it wasn't because summer vacations, right? I hate when people say that. My dad used to say that to me. Kill me. But why is it that we chose this profession and find that purpose? All right, so that is a very brief explanation of the 7 C's of resilience. What I hope is you were writing, thinking, getting some ideas around what does it look like for you in your role, right? One, for yourself, and maybe building it for your team or your staff, right? If you're a leader on this, watching this, and you're a school leader, right, or a department head or a district leader, like what are you doing it for your teams and for the people to help them build these 7 C's of resilience? What are you just doing with your peers in your school? How are you contributing to this work to do this? And I want people to share out, because I think there's a lot of great ideas. And every time I've done this with staff, they have so many better ideas, right, than I have. Like they know, and when they start to analyze what's going on, there's so many things to celebrate. And I think that's such an incredible thing too, is to celebrate all the good stuff that's already going on. Sometimes we forget about that. When you're super stressed, right, that we often forget and don't recognize all the wonderful things that are going on. And this is an opportunity to do that. But it's also an opportunity to share with people and say, hey, this is what we've done as a staff. This is what personally I've done. It really makes a difference. So we don't have enough. So CJ, you're off the hook. You don't have to do a breakout room unless you want to do 7 with one person in it. No, just kidding. They can reflect individually. Just let's have an open discussion. If one of those really resonated with you, like you really like, oh, coping. Yes. You know what? We're doing this as a staff. We're doing, if you could share, or if you don't feel like talking, that's fine. Even just put it in the chat. That would be wonderful. And we'd love to hear you sharing. Please share. All right, now there's 6 of you.
Dr. Kennedy had to leave.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Come on,
You know,
anybody?
Zach, as you were talking about finding purpose, I was even thinking it doesn't even have to be in work. It can be outside of work too.
Totally.
Again, going back to, do we tie everything to our work? Is our work our life? I always think about, what legacy am I leaving behind? Do I want to be remembered for what I did for work, or do I want to be remembered for who I was as a person? Right. And my answer in my mind is who I was as a person. Yes, I helped with work. Yes, I helped with this. But as a whole, what is my purpose on earth? And for me, that is to help others. And what am I doing to help those around me? And that's my purpose.
Love it. Yeah.
And
And
when I decide, yeah,
when
go
you
ahead.
keep I mean, and you can keep coming back to that, right? When you start feeling
Mhm.
burned out, or you start feeling like, okay, there's just a lot going on, that's resilience, right? That's like this is what this is a strategy that you can use to come back to, a good place so you can be most effective. And that's what this is talking about, because life's going to hit us, and it hits all of us differently, and all kinds of ways, and all kind of the most in opportune times.
And then Amy said, for myself, I'm hitting each of those, but for my teachers, I haven't said anything for them to work through it. We have some major relationship problems between teachers. You
Yeah.
know, Amy, we get it. We go into a lot of schools, and that's a problem. I will tell you, one of the most difficult sessions I've ever led was with a school district, and the staff no one was talking to each other. They were all fighting. The principal didn't even want to talk to them. We took the time and did this teacher self-care inventory. And by the end, they found commonality. They saw each other as human beings. They saw that there was more to each other than just work, and got to know, even just sharing out, one of the teachers that was the worst one that the principal had identified for causing problems and trouble, stirring up the trouble. When we started talking about cooking, because somebody brought up that they like to cook, she's like lit up. And oh my gosh, the connections that were made. And from that day forward, yes, they had struggles, but they got to see each other as human beings, and they had each other's common interests in their minds, and would easily be able to, as the administrator, the principal could then create opportunities for them to connect through that. And
Yeah.
potlucks of bring in your favorite dishes, and we'll all try them and tell the story. Take a minute before we eat, tell the story of why you made that, what started you with that. Another one was into books, so a book club or sharing their favorite books. This one activity bridged their community and helped each other be seen as humans, not just worker bees. And to see that there's more outside of the four walls of work, that everybody had a life outside of work.
Another strategy for that I found with one of my districts was the very simple start of this process. It was just the superintendent and the principal recognized that there was this problem. They communicated that they understood and that it was important, and we created a survey for them to take. It was part self-care, but part also recognizing that I have some responsibility as a leader. I understand, the system, like, of our organizational framework might be causing some stress and some of these things. And so we generated a survey that what it was doing was really sharing responsibility, and they communicated that we want your feedback, we want to understand what's going on, and we want to create a path forward. That simple act of sending a 30-question survey out to the staff, anonymous, and then acknowledging that I heard you, we did this, here's recommendations, and then putting a team together that wanted to talk about it. Like, it led to this huge shift where now, 2 years later, they're running small groups every month talking about self-care strategies, what professional development they want, sharing things. And it was really just this simple act of acknowledging that things weren't great, and I want to involve you into it. We got to tackle this together, and that was a huge
And I'm sure too, it naturally helped them understand what was the reason for decisions being made and why things may or may not be able to happen, opening up the conversation.
Yeah, we did a whole professional development actually on just that, what's out of your control, what's in your control, what are the reasons for it. But again, it's that fair process discussion, right? Like there are some decisions that have to be made, but once they understood that and there was an explanation, it was like, oh, like, they just, if you're in your classroom doing your thing, you don't understand that. And all of us that have been administrators, like we've all heard the cliche, oh, you went to the dark side. We've all heard those things. We've all been there, yes, I've been to the dark side, right? And what I found at just experience, and then this experience, how I was able to explain some decisions and include people in those decisions as much as possible, and then explain why the direction we went, and then set very clear expectations. It was huge. It was a game changer. So, yeah. All right. Let's see what I think you're closing us out, Donna.
Yep. So like we said before, self-care isn't selfish. It's actually taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. We want you to be healthy, happy, and whole so that you can take care of your family, your students, your staff, and be able to be present in each and every moment that you experience each day. And then wrap up, remember your commitment. You hopefully wrote it down, one thing that you want to work on, and commit to yourself to doing that within the next week, at least one time. Share what you did with somebody. Now, CJ is going to drop the feedback survey into the chat. She already did. Please take a minute, open it up. You can fill it out now or you can fill it out later. Up to you, but that will get you the materials, the presentation, the recording, and your certificate, your CEU certificate for today. And if you're interested in partnering with us, we can go out and help you with bringing your staff together, giving them their own personal self-care session, or a multitude of anything you need. We can do it. We can get grants for you. We can get whatever you need for you and take that work off of you having to do it all yourself. And then Zach, there's a question. How would you explain the difference between venting and gossiping?
Ooh. I love that. Yeah. I had a colleague of mine. I loved the way she explained this. Because here's the thing. Those are important, right? We have to also acknowledge that if this is happening a lot, then we're looking this from like a data mindset. Remember when we talked about mindsets, it's like, okay, this is data for me, right? If my staff is continuously venting and just like, it's like always, and then there's gossip and rumors, like what is behind this? So I think that's just an important thing to do, and then figure out then what are some healthy ways to do this? What are healthier ways for people to voice opinions, voice frustration? Because stifling it, that probably won't work. But we gotta think of respectful ways to do that, and then productive ways of doing that. And I mean, I think there's a lot that goes in there to talk about that. But the difference, one of my colleagues said it's a half sandwich vent, right? So this was to help the staff. So we brought this to our staff and said, look, we know there's change. This was years ago. We were going through a super crazy superintendent change and board change, and it was just ridiculous, right? And she was like, we gotten from the staff and said, this, guys, we get it. If you're venting and it goes longer than your half a sandwich at lunch, then we need to have another conversation. right? You need to come to someone, we need to talk, because more than a half, and she was using it as a metaphor, but if your entire lunch period and all your free time and all you're doing is venting to staff members and to your peers and complaining about everything, that's unhealthy. Okay, it is normal, yes, because that is an indicator that we're probably in that burnout stage. And that's why that professional development for staff is so important, when you start to recognize and name those symptoms of burnout, secondary stress syndrome, and compassion fatigue, and you just say, guys, it's normal. You've been doing this for a while. We got change. We got this. I know that. If you are venting and complaining and gossiping about people more than a half sandwich of your time at lunch, then it's not venting anymore. We need to talk about what's really going on. Make an appointment with me. We got to figure out what's going on. We got to do this in a healthy way, because that is not healthy. That's not good for staff. It's not good for yourself, right? And just being very, very honest about that. I mean, we are humans, and we're in these closed environments, and we know that stuff's going to happen. But when it takes over and consumes their whole interpersonal relationships and all that, then to me that just signals that we need to do some work, and we need to do it in a system thinking way, right? We need to actually then really get some good data, really try to talk to staff, really see what's really going on, and try to then address it, because just sitting in the teacher's lounge spewing vileness is not good for anybody. So,
and what I tell my staff at our restaurant is, it's gossip if you won't have a conversation with that person directly. If you're complaining or gossiping and you won't come and tell me or the person you're talking about what the problem is, then that's gossiping.
Yeah.
Right? If you come and tell me what's going on and you need to vent, or a customer has upset you and you just need to get it off your chest, that's venting, and you can move on from it. But if you're stuck and you can't let it go and you're constantly talking about it, then that is gossip. And that tells you that that's something that's on you that you need to change. And I can help you with that if you tell me. But I can't do anything about it if you don't share that with me.
Yeah, and that's so hard, Amy. I feel for you. That is, it's very difficult. And I mean, acknowledging that it's going on, and acknowledging that there's obviously things bugging people, I think that's important. I mean, right? We always talk about this. There's nothing worse than, because here's the thing, right? I always tell this to my own children and everybody else. Emotions aren't wrong, right? It's sometimes what we do with them aren't the best, right? I don't know if I would even say wrong, but sometimes we react to our emotions in a way that's more harmful than productive. And so we're feeling what we're feeling. So honoring that is what you're feeling is what you're feeling. And I can honor that. What I want to do as a leader, I want to figure out what's behind these strong emotions. What is it going on? And honestly, I mean, I've had to have conversations with people where this was not the place for them, right? My school, that profession, it was not the place. And sometimes you just have to have honest conversations with each other. I can't solve all the problems. Again, organizational, yes, there are some things in an organization that we can tackle, and absolutely leaders have a responsibility, but so does everybody. We also have a personal responsibility to do that, to be a contributor, to have an open mind about trying to fix it, and rather than just complain. And that's the deal we got to strike, right? And if you're going to come, I can, if you're going to meet me halfway, we're going to work, I can do that. But if you're not going to do anything on your end, then I can't help. I can only come this far, right? So it's very difficult conversations for sure.
And not jumping in to fix everything.
Yeah.
Putting some ownership on them to fix it.
Yeah.
What do you think could make it better? Tell me more about what you're experiencing, and dig deeper. right? Is it always? Is it, if they use the word always, okay, tell me
Ever.
about always or never, right? All right, let's talk about that more.
Yeah.
Why is it always? Or then what you end up finding out is, oh, it was once or twice. Okay, let's talk about that. What can we do to prevent that once or twice again?
And Amy, I will tell you this, and I know Donna will support this, but anything, if you want a good strategy, and obviously we've done these classes already early on in the year, but restorative conversations and using affective language is a really helpful and beneficial tool, especially as leaders, to just keep those conversations going without triggering that stress response. And they help, and I think they help out a lot. So if that's something, if you want, like, how do I even have these conversations? Some of those, you can probably Google affective language and restorative practices.
Or just go online to our SEL forums. They're posted there.
That's better.
And watch the forum and get the resources.
Good
They're
job,
right
Donna.
there.
Yeah, do that.
Oh yeah, we have that.
Oh yeah. All right.
Okay. Any other questions for us? Anything you need from us? We do have our contact information available. Feel free to reach out if you need that form or can't find it or need the other materials. Please let us know. That's our emails, and you'll get it with the presentation as well. And if you won't have any other questions, we appreciate you coming today and look forward to seeing you again hopefully next month.